I'm Paulina Steidel. I'm product manager at Tricentis. My main responsibility are everything mobile related. They call me mobile queen or the mobile person. So that's me. Today I have a pleasure to bring you closer to the world of exploratory testing for mobile. And I decided to divide this session into 3 subsections: the what, the why, and the how. This way I'm planning to introduce you to the topic so you will know it from every single angle and you will get out of the room with the feeling that you know everything there is about mobile exploratory testing. So let's start with the what, and what exactly is exploratory testing for mobile devices. When I heard the topic exploratory testing for the very first time from Ingo, who you might already have seen here, I had no clue what it really means. And actually the first picture I had in my mind was, well, Sherlock Holmes. And I thought that maybe being an exploratory tester is being like a detective and trying to solve difficult situations, having the whole knowledge in your head, being exactly like Sherlock Holmes. So, trying to find the solution for the most difficult problem. If that would be true, well, that would be absolutely exciting, wouldn't it? Another idea I had, like what could it be to be an exploratory tester, was Dora the Explorer. You might know her from cartoons for kids. She is one little brave girl who is having different adventures every single day. She was actually brave enough to try to teach me German, since I watch her every single morning to try to improve my language. Well, don't tell her, but it didn't that well. But yeah, maybe that's exactly what it is, to be an exploratory tester, to be brave, to try new things every day, to learn new things every day. Could that be? This third idea, and I'm a little bit ashamed that it was only my last idea, what it could be to be an exploratory tester, or be like explorers, like the famous people like Magellan, Vasco da Gama, and all of those people. It was only my last idea. I'm not that good, right? But could that mean that being an exploratory tester is being like them, discovering new things where no one have been before? Could that be the truth? And also like writing down the stories you had there for others to learn from that? Well, the truth about exploratory testing is that actually all of that. You are solving difficult situations, you are gathering the knowledge, you are learning new things every single day, and you are exploring the world and writing down whatever you found out for the others. So a little bit on more serious side of exploratory testing, LEAPC is the acronym I often use to describe to people who never heard this term on what it exactly means to do exploratory testing. It's really easy to remember, and the first letter L stands for learning. So by doing exploratory testing, you are learning your application every single day. A lot of people tend to mix it up with the black box testing, where they don't know the application itself and they are just playing blindly with that. Exploratory testing also can cover that field, but it's not all. You can do learning at every single stage of development of your application. So you're learning it when you've never seen it before, and you are still learning it when you already had that at your hand. So you are deepening the knowledge you have. The first I stands for inventing. Why? In exploratory testing, there are no scripts to follow. There are no tests prepared by your manager, by your test lead. You are the inventor of the test cases. You are the one who is actually thinking of what should be executed. And P there stands for performing, because the tests you just invented are the tests you will perform right away. So you're not writing anything upfront, your execution, you are doing everything on the fly. S stands for sharing, because, well, the previous 3 steps wouldn't make that much sense if you wouldn't gather all the knowledge and share that with the others. So that's why it is so important to share whatever you just learned and did with your manager, maybe with your customer, whoever is interested in what you just encountered. The last letter, the second I, stands for interpreting. Because, well, it might be actually the most important part in here, because that lets you actually interpret whatever you just found out, whatever you just did, and see if the behavior you just encountered, was it really a bug, or was it correct, or maybe you should do something with that. So exploratory testing is all of that. You are learning your application through every single step. You are inventing your tests and perform them right away. You share the results and you interpret them, either you or someone else with whom you shared them. So knowing what exploratory testing is in general, it's super easy to explain what it is, mobile exploratory testing. And as you probably already suspect, it's nothing else but doing the whole exploratory testing on your mobile devices directly with you. So you are learning your mobile application, you are inventing the tests, you are performing them directly on the mobile device, you share whatever you just found out with the others, and you interpret your results to improve your mobile application. We have the theory covered. I hope all of you now are a little bit closer in the topic of mobile exploratory testing. So let's now go into the second section, why you should even consider doing the tests, exploratory tests on your mobile devices. First reasoning I have in here, it's not an order list, it's pretty random, so please don't look too much into numbers. But the first thing I have on my slides is quick feedback. Why? I bet you were in the situation when you already built something up and you wanted to get some information, if it was something your customer or maybe your product owner expected from you, or was it absolutely a miss instead of being a hit? And I know that it often takes a lot of time for others to check stuff like that. And in the mobile world, it often happens that people, instead of just playing with your application right away and giving you feedback right away, they're waiting a little bit until they will have time to come by your desk and play with the application with you. With mobile exploratory testing, it's actually super easy because you have your application delivered by your session admin directly to you, and you can just play with it at any time, anywhere. So you don't have to wait for this super tiny time slot where you can go to your developer and check application there. You can do that at any time and give him feedback as soon as possible. Another reasoning behind doing mobile exploratory testing is beta testing. So as I told you before, you are learning your application all the time. There is no place where you're just stopping learning curve. So here, it is really nice with doing mobile exploratory testing also on those early stages to get feedback as quickly as possible, to adapt the next steps of building your application as soon as you have already something to show. So beta testing is really, really easy and really powerful when you are doing mobile exploratory testing this way. Another reasoning is super close connected to the beta testing is actually the UX, user friendliness, user experience checkup. Because while you are doing all those beta testing, you are giving the application very early to your testers to check if something you planned for them is actually something they expected and something they understand. Because, well, if that would turn out at the very end when you are already finished with the full implementation of your application, costs are high so much that it's, well, basically you probably just kill the application and write it from the scratch, right? So here you are giving them chance to actually check if what you thought is good idea, well, is actually a good idea. Another reasoning behind exploratory testing is, well, so-called reproduction steps. That's a topic a little bit closer to developer, I guess. I, as a former developer, had this awful situation multiple times that someone was coming to me and saying, "Oh, Paulina, nothing works. Come on, this application is awful. Change that, blah, blah, blah." I see some nodding faces here, so I guess you also had that experience in your life. And yeah, it's super frustrating, isn't it? But what you already know, what you usually do in situations like that, you are asking your tester, okay, first of all, what exactly didn't work? And second of all, what did you do that it stopped working? And well, human nature is tricky and human mind is even trickier. And we not only tend to exaggerate things, but we also tend to mix things up and probably will not even remember the steps we take. With the exploratory testing for mobile, every single step we did up front, some bad behavior occurred, is documented. So we have everything listed out not only with the screenshots, but also with the descriptions. Was it a click action? Was it inputting something in the edit box? Or maybe I just closed the application and I simply forgot about it. So here we have those reproduction steps which we can easily export and give it to our developers so he can check if the behavior was really faulty, and if it was, fix the bug right away because all the materials are there. The next reasoning behind doing mobile exploratory testing is documentation. So, well, we all probably can agree that having good documentation is something we all benefit from. If we have good documentation, we can just give it to our customers and they can play with that instead of raising incidents right away. So doing documentation is really, really important in IT. Of course, the good documentation involves also screenshots, but well, screenshots from mobile devices are not something we like doing. Every single device has a different combination of buttons you have to press. You have to do weird things with your fingers. If it's a tablet, sometimes you cannot even do that. And well, what is even worse, I tend to mix those combinations completely. And maybe instead of doing a screenshot, I'm actually turning the volume down. On what is even worse, I'm closing the application. So, well, that definitely does not help doing my documentation in an easier way, right? So, what exploratory testing does for you, as I already told you, is just taking screenshots of your application at all the time. And what you can do with that is that you can use those screenshots in your documentation. That's super easy. That's something actually I started doing also internally, and it's helping so much internally and outside the company as well. The next reasoning behind doing exploratory testing on mobile devices is that there are no limits. So in the traditional world of testing, you always have those predefined steps, some path to follow, all of that already described by your test lead, test manager. In exploratory testing, it's actually advised to never follow any rules. You should be inventive. You should think about places you've never been before in your application. You know, your customers are probably way more creative than you are, and if there is a possibility to crash your application, well, I'm sure that they will find it. So it's way better to find it sooner in your environment with your people around and fix it as soon as possible than leave the chances that someone else will find it out and you basically will not have a happy life afterwards. The next reasoning behind doing mobile exploratory testing is, well, I call it real-life testing. So usually when we do mobile testing, we are in a closed environment, when we have good internet connection, where everything works fine, and we are even like doing whatever we can to make those tests green. Well, that's not how real life goes, right? We are often at places where there is no internet connection and the application crashes. We are at the metro station or in metro itself or maybe elevator and, well, the application is not working anymore. And if it's not working, customers are not happy. So this way, when we are doing mobile exploratory testing, we are mobile and we can take the mobile application wherever we wish to check it at various environments, not only in this closed environment of our office. Next reason behind doing mobile exploratory testing is actually something I added to the slides yesterday in the evening after conversation with one of you. This is a really, really cool idea why we should do exploratory testing for mobile, because, well, we have all those descriptions of what our testers did while playing with the application, while learning the application. We can check how hard was it for them to complete some actions. So we can actually check how is the learning curve. Is it steep, is it not? Should we improve something there? And when we compete that with the other things I told you about, like beta testing, UX testing, we can do that all together and improve our application also from this point of view. That's really an amazing point, and thank you for that. And the last reason on my list is so-called up ratings. And I would like to explain it to you from a little bit different point of view by doing some imaginary task right now. So now imagine that you are doing some renovation at your place and you want to find the best people to do that for you. What do? Well, I would pick up my phone, call my family, call my friends, and find the best people who will take care of everything at my place, and I will be sure that they will not leave any mess, or I will be able to turn on my lights and the water will not just blow from my walls. So that's what I would do. I would get some recommendations. Now, well, that's a familiar environment. You know how to deal with that. What if I would like to travel to the other part of the world where I've never been before, where none of my friends, my family ever been before, and I want to book a hotel there? Well, I would again look at some recommendations, but since I do not know anyone, I would actually look online and try to see what others think about this place, and is it safe for me? Will I find some cockroaches on my pillow, or is everything going to be all right? So I'm looking for a recommendation to make sure that what I'm planning to do is safe and everything will be as I planned. That's also actually applicable for installing new mobile application, because what you do when you want to install mobile application, you are also often checking the reviews, especially if it's some secure application like bank or insurance. There is a cool story of one of the banks in Austria who had an application released very early to the Play and App Store, and their reviews were terrible, really terrible. So the rating was below 2. Do you know why? The reasoning behind that was actually the flow which they invented for doing the bank transfer was ridiculous. User had to click multiple views, just go through, enter a lot of data. He had to switch the application a few times, and no one liked it. Everyone hated it. And immediately people started giving the bad reviews, 1, 2 stars maximum. With rating like that for bank application, if you are a bank user, well, you would probably never install something like that. There's like this big red alarm already there saying, oh my God, it's probably not secure. Let's go away from that. Let's try a different app or maybe even different bank provider. What this bank actually did then, they fixed the problem right away. And they were expecting that the rating will go up. You know what happened? It never went up. Why? Well, once you have bad rating like that, especially for the bank application, people are simply not downloading it anymore. So no matter what you do, you lose the trust and no one will go there anymore. What they did in the end, they again invested a lot of money, invested a lot of developer power and time, of course, and implemented a completely new application from the scratch. This time they made sure that all the beta testing, all the UX testing was in place, and the application was a hit. It now has 5 rating, even though it's on the market already for over a year. So with this story, I want to tell you that it's really important to make sure that users like your application, that they know the flow, the learning curve is not that steep, and that they will not give you bad results, because if they do, then, well, you are lost and you can be replaced by someone else there on the market. With that, I think I a little bit convinced you, maybe more than a little bit, why mobile exploratory testing is so important. And now I wanted to tell you how to do that. I guess some of you already have an idea how. And yes, the answer is you can do that with Tricentis Tosca, of course. If you are familiar to our exploratory testing product, it's exactly the same way. So you can divide the users into basic 2 types. There is a session admin, so the person who creates the scenario for you, who is expecting some results. That's the person with whom you would share your results at the very end. And there is also an exploratory tester, so the person playing with your application. The whole exploratory testing session starts, of course, with the session admin, so let's look into that from his perspective. The first thing he has to do while doing exploratory testing is to create a session. Simple like that, you do that in Tosca by clicking on one button and the session is started. The next step, after you already have that in place, is to set some admin details. You can set a lot of them, like the duration of the test. You can time box it to some specific value. You can add some attachments if there are any. But what is the most important here is that you enter 2 things: the address of the session admin and the charter. In charter, you give your tester information of what is expected from your exploratory testing session. So you basically state the goal of his session, but you do not tell him what to do. Again, remember that the invention part is a clue in exploratory testing. So you shouldn't even give him the advices in this area. You just give him a goal and write it here in the charter. Having that already in place, it's time to finally add some testers. Again, as you can see, you simply click on that button and add name of your tester, maybe ID, whatever you prefer, however you like to do that. And simple like that, you have a list of people who will do execution of their exploratory testing for you. When you already have that in place, one too many, it's time to give your testers access to the application. You can do that by various different options. You can add the application itself to the email you were sent to your tester. You can share with him a link to the application. You can make use of the tools you're probably already having in place, like maybe someone is using a hockey app where the application is deployed and you can share that with your tester. You can give him also access to your build server if there is any. So you can do that on any way possible. Just remember that it's very important because otherwise, well, what will he test, right? When you already have those covered, it's time to invite your tester. But in order to do that, you need to give his email address. And for mobile testing, you also need to remember to change the test device to mobile. So he will not perform your mobile exploratory testing on desktop because it wouldn't really make sense, would it? When you have that in place, you simply click the invite button. And the next step is really cool for session admin because you are simply chilling down and waiting for the results to come. It's your coffee break. With that, it's time to switch to the role of exploratory tester and see how it looks like from his perspective. What first thing he needs to do is to open up his email he received from the session admin. And in the email, he will have this invite link with the session details. When he opens it up, he will see a page like that with the description of the session, with some details about it, big QR code. He also can see the charter in here. He can also download it as a PDF and make sure that he always has it at hand. Simple like that. When he has that already in place, it's time to open the application. Well, the application he just got from the session owner. When that one is in place, it's time to enter the session data. So the session data is the thing you just saw on the screen with the link you just opened. And you can enter the session data either manually or by simply clicking on that button and scanning the QR code we just showed you. This, if you scan it, all the data will be filled in automatically. And with that, the tester can actually start the session by simply pressing the connect button. From this moment on, when you see this big rec icon on your application, everything what is done in the application is recorded. So every single action you do, you will have a screenshot saved for that together with the description of the action. But you can do actually more. You can also add notes at any single time because maybe you want to give some feedback like, oh my God, I hated this button. It was way too big or way too small, what is probably most often the case. Or maybe you couldn't do something and you wanted to express your feeling about it. Or maybe from the other way, you actually loved some feature in your application and you wanted to tell your session admin that it was the best thing you ever experienced. So you also have that opportunity. Other than that, you can also take a screenshot. So not only the screenshot we automatically create, but also something special for you because you thought that something was worth saving for future. When we are finished with the session, when we press the big stop button there, it's time to verify our results. We present the tester every single action he did together with the description and the screenshot. It might happen that he wants to change it. It's also possible directly in the application, so he can add some notes here. He can also delete something because, well, maybe while he was doing exploratory testing on his mobile device, his wife wrote him something and he wouldn't like to share that probably with the session admin. So there is also an option to remove that at this moment of time. When he's satisfied with the results, it's time to upload them. And basically, that's it. for the exploratory tester. His adventure with the mobile application stops at this moment, and we're going back to our famous session admin. What he does at this moment, when the results are already ready from the tester, he can simply import all of them to our Tosca solution and analyze them. So what you can see here is that the first draw of everything what happened during the exploration of your exploratory tester, together with the explanation of what was done, what he wrote additionally, and of course the screenshot. And the screenshot is not only a screenshot, it also contains everything marked of what was actually done. So you will see directly there of what your user did. So if he normally would tell you, oh, I didn't do anything wrong, here you have the confirmation of what actually happened. So that's exactly how exploratory testing works in mobile. I hope I covered all 3 topics and you are a little bit more aware of how to do exploratory testing for mobile devices, why you should do that, and what exactly it is. Do you have any questions about it?
Yeah, for the report you just shared, is there any, so how do you decide the pass-fail? So, internally, so say we define a, so internally when we define a phase, okay, let's do exploratory testing this week. We know these blah, blah, blah features have been delivered, right? So
yes.
When you do that, what is the pass-fail criteria here? Or is there any pass-fail criteria for exploratory testing?
What do you mean by pass-fail criteria?
For test case execution, right?
Okay.
So for documentation purpose, right? So there is, for any test management tool, we do say, hey, yeah, this test scenario passed, this test scenario failed. If someone is just browsing through the application, so we are tracking what did they do, and
yes.
a lot of areas I can think of where we can take advantage of that, right? But in terms of our formal testing, what is the pass-fail criteria of those scenarios that, yes, our exploratory testing was successful, these scenarios were successful, these areas we failed? What is that definition?
So basically the decision behind it is on the arms of the session admin. So he can browse through what was actually done, and here he can mark if it was okay or not. But he bases that decision based on the notes from the exploratory tester and together on his experience. And he can mark in here, was it passed or was it failed? So that's how it works. You can do that directly in Tosca after you import the results.
But that's an additional work. If I'm bringing in an external user, right,
yes.
and saying, do that, this is an, people hate to do later, or they're like, oh, I forgot what I did. I don't. So is there a way when I was executing that, right? I know you shared where you can take the screenshot or
yes.
add some notes. Is there a way that I can mark it as pass or fail right when I was doing that execution?
No, it's the work afterwards. That's the part of interpreting the results, which is on the arms of the session admin. So that's how it works. He set the goal for the tester, and the tester could meet that goal or not, and it's not that important in the end. But the most important part is that if everything in between was working fine, and the only person who can decide on that is the session admin. So it's not really about executing the test later on. It's more or less on that, like what was exactly done and tracking all of those interactions. So only then you can define if it was a success or not.
Mm-hmm. And
it's a little bit different mindset than in traditional testing.
Yeah, I mean, but I do see a lot of doctors complaining too when they have to write notes after they have seen all the patients throughout the day. They hate that part. Oh, really? What did I do? Right?
Yeah.
But other than that, I get it. This is how it works. There was this note section that you shared that you can enter notes, something you liked or you didn't like. Yes. Where did it show up in the report?
It also shows in here on those 2 views. So you will see it as one of the actions. You will see it in between that, okay, on that screen, like here you can see the description next to it. And in this description, you will see the screenshot and the description of what your user actually wrote. It will be very visible, so you will see that, okay, at this point, he was super unhappy and he wrote this and that note. So you will have it in here as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Paulina, Just to clarify, it sounds like exploratory testing can only happen with a physical device. Is that right?
No, it's not true. You can do that on the physical device. You can do that on emulator. The most important part is to import your application to the thing you would like to test. It can be device, the real device, the emulator.
Okay.
It can be located in the cloud. It doesn't really matter. So
Okay.
you can do that on all of that, and
Okay.
on Android and iOS.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? If you come up with different questions later on, I will be at the mobile booth, so you can also meet me there. And you can also contact me at my email address, which is, well, p.steidel@tricentis.com, obviously. So feel free to do that after the session as well. Thank you.